You must construct additional pylons. 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 You must construct. You must construct additional pylons. You must.
Troops, I saw a bear here. Today, we're going to talk about Update 58 for Foxhole. This is more of a surprise, small update, focusing largely on quality of life features. But, as with every update, I'll go through it anyways. The only real new piece of content with this one is there is a new excavator modification that has been added to all stationary harvesters. This modification allows the harvesters to continue production of resources at a reduced rate when a resource field has run out of resource nodes. Shortages? Never heard of them. For new features, reservable crates can be used in mass production factory orders when being used from a shipping container. Placing a shippable at a structure with a crane and reopening the UI of said structure will continue to display the crane's associated shippable, so you don't have to pick up the crate and place it back down over and over and over again if you accidentally exit the menu. All train car passengers now can see the train's HUD when they're in the passenger seats. Refueling a vehicle or structure now checks all nearby liquid sources for valid liquids, not just the closest source. Notice here, I've got 2 fuel containers, the closest one is empty, and the further one has some fuel in it. So as long as one of these has fuel in it, my truck will automatically detect where the fuel is and source it from there. A reset passcode button has been added to reserve stockpiles. This button allows reserve stockpile creators to reset the passcode and revokes access from all other members of the reserve stockpile and hides the reserve stockpile if it's publicly visible. This is a good way to reset in case you need to reconfigure your stockpiles or to snuff out anyone trying to steal things that aren't supposed to. Foundations themselves can now be squad reserved. This should make claiming facilities from the get-go a little easier. And alert logs, in the upper left corner of the screen, can now be accessed to see a history of all recent alert messages, just in case next time you miss it when Jade Cove gets nuked again.
Nuclear launch detected.
Some gameplay changes include, for facilities, players can no longer start production at an assembly station if there is no power connected. The devs note that this is specifically to prevent players from accidentally locking themselves out of their own vehicles when using someone else's facility, which may not be supplying power to the assembly station. The diesel power plant and power station now stop using resources when consumption on the network is at 0. Stationary harvesters now show a failure message when there are no resource nodes to be mined at resource fields. Added a note to stationary harvester recipe tooltip when the recipe requires resource nodes to work. Production orders that are paused due to a lack of resources now resume instantly when sufficient resources are provided. Swapping between recipes now maintains the selected personal or public options instead of defaulting to personal. Dry dock demolish time has been reduced to 3 hours. Rare material drops are increased when tech resources are no longer required. Gates, fire pits, tank traps, and barbed wire can now be built over provisional roads. Bunker bases Tier 1 and 2 can now be flagged for obstructive placement. If one faction is attacking into another region, the region they are coming from will not protect structures at the rapid decay zone. Only the region they go into, that is to say the region they're attacking into, can have defenses built around the border bases in the rapid decay zone that stay. This way you can't just defend your borders by building a wall of machine guns for when the enemy pushes back into your zone. And there's been an increased no build area in front of salvage and sulfur resource mines to prevent railway tracks from blocking resource containers. Moving on to some map changes, a new map icon has been introduced for emplacement houses, basically for the mortar houses around the map. It's a safe house icon, but one with a broken roof. In Akrithia, certain obstructive props and foliage have been removed, and a garrison house has been replaced by the Pretridia seaport. In Ashfield, the coastal gun has been moved in Ashtown, and the pre-placed tracks have been adjusted as well for better movement. In Kalokai, the Pre-placed tracks at Bakay Ridge have been moved to run along the north side of the road in town. In Sableport, some pre-placed tracks were added to Light's End near the seaport. In Terminus, the pre-placed tracks at the Therizo seaport have been moved and extended, and there's been a ramp added to the shipyard directly east of the Therizo seaport. Up in Stone Cradle, there have been some broken up ice meshes that have been removed. In Speaking Woods, the Tyne seaport has been adjusted to allow for easier access to the north side of the seaport with ships, and one shipyard at Tyne has been removed to accommodate the above change. In Callum's Cape, the pre-placed tracks at the Callum's Keep seaport have been extended. In the Clashta, some sound effects have been adjusted in the west, and some fences have been added around the region. Lastly, in Basin Cyanak, some additional path to Catail Station seaport have been added, and the pre-placed tracks there have also been extended. Some balance changes include stationary harvesters for salvage have had their input limit to basic recipes decreased from 300 to 200. The stationary harvester for components has added a tech requirement of facilities at Tier 2, and all recipes costs have changed from petrol to heavy oil. Stationary harvesters for coal has had their input limit to basic recipe reduced from 300 to 50. Stationary harvester for sulfur has moved tech from facility Tier 3 to facility at Tier 2. The cost has changed from 20 steel construction materials to 45 processed construction materials. And of course, everyone's favorite, the fuel silos, has had its armor reduced from Tier 2 to Tier 1 on the structure and its husk. Its health has been reduced from 1800 down to 1200, and the cost has changed from 15 construction materials to 5 pipes. Additionally, the rate for which mud encumbrance is gained has been increased slightly. Some other changes include the options screen relating to keyboard has now been reworked, categorized the binds for easier navigation, so now you'll see categories for movement, combat, etc. Binds can now be cleared with the delete key, and updated text on the binding prompts. The failure message has been aligned for trench connectors with other structures and improved some of the trench connector specific failure messages. Change the punctuation for the large item pickup message to be grammatically correct for all large items. Remove the regiment tag from the player's name section along the top of the F1 menu. Improve the logic for hammering, resolving some bugs and edge cases. Expanded the checks for squad reservations. Performing an action on a vehicle or structure, such as interacting with the inventory that was claimed by a now disbanded squad, will unreserve said vehicle or structure. There's been various asset optimizations. There's a water explosion visual effects now for howitzer garrisons and the 300mm storm cannons. Many projectiles, such as RPGs, now impact the water instead of traveling through it. All stockpiles will only show category relevant to said stockpile, hiding unused categories. Improved the size of icons of the squad and chat UI, and reorganized some of the buttons. Removed or replaced some legacy map assets. Added a failure message when attempting to move loose items to a full inventory, and also when attempting to submit crates to a stockpile that has reached its total crate limit. There's been improved performance on the map screen. Adjusted the fueling point on the BMS Iron Ship to have interactions consistent with large ships. Increased the grace period before ships take damage being underneath a bridge from 30 seconds to 120 seconds. Added a failure message when attempting to use the wrong large material at a build site, now showing what large material is actually required for construction. Updated the concrete material icon and painting in the bag's stripe. The transfer item prompt dropdown now autofills to public rather than starting blank. Added a text chat cooldown when too many messages are sent in quick succession. Added a note to the tooltip of armor uniforms describing their resistance. Rephrased light kinetic ammunition stacking message in uniform tooltips, and damaged ice visuals have been updated. There were some bug fixes along with this update, but I'll leave that for the patch notes down below. because I'm off to PAX right about now when you're listening to this. As usual, thanks for tuning in. If you like what you saw in this update, or appreciate me covering these videos, please like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest Foxhole updates. And as always, good luck, keep your heads down, and stay in your foxholes. Bear out.
Shit. God fucking hell.